Hello there, happy Money Monday, and welcome back to another episode of the Empowered and Abundant podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 more secrets to my success that I rarely share. Now, I recorded an episode a while ago called 3 Secrets to My Success That I Rarely Share, and in all honesty, that episode has been my most listened to episode on the podcast. People love that episode, and so I felt inspired to do another one and keep that momentum going. And I've spent all week thinking about the other secrets to my success that I don't really talk about in my marketing and my podcast. So this is a very special inside look at the brain of Scarlett, the biz hippie. And before we dive in, I want to remind you that on Monday, March 30th, I am hosting the Abundant Entrepreneur Masterclass. This is a free 90-minute masterclass where we're diving into how can you become an abundant entrepreneur? What are the steps you need to take, and what are the mistakes you need to avoid so that you can support yourself financially while doing the work that you love? If you are a coach, if you are an artist, if you are a yoga teacher, if you're a healer, this masterclass is for you because I'm going to be diving into exactly what can block the flow of money in your business and exactly what are the steps to take to build the foundation of being able to fully support yourself financially with the work that you love. And these are the lessons that I've learned over the almost 6 years in business and creating my own abundant entrepreneurship, my own business that does support me financially. I invite you to come live. This is going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 11 a.m. Pacific Time on March 30th, because at the end, there is going to be a 30-minute live Q&A session where I'm going to be answering all of your questions about money, abundance, entrepreneurship, or anything that we touch on in the masterclass. And if you absolutely can't make it live, there will also be a replay sent out. So if you haven't signed up yet, it's totally free. You can grab the link down in the show notes below and join me for the Abundant Entrepreneur Masterclass on March 30th, 2026. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk about the 3 secrets to my success that I rarely share. Number 1 is about making decisions. Now, a big part of my backstory, before I became the biz hippie, I was always an incredibly indecisive person. Even as a kid, I really struggled to make decisions in my life. And I often felt very torn, very conflicted when it came to making any decisions because I was afraid of making the wrong choice. There were parts of me that wanted one thing, parts of me that wanted the other thing, parts of me that didn't want to hurt people, didn't want to mess up. And as a result, what happened was it was actually easier for me to make no decisions at all as opposed to making decisions and the fear of having those decisions be the wrong choice. So what this looked like was therefore keeping myself stuck in situations that I didn't really want to be in, that weren't really healthy for extended periods of time. I remember one of my high school boyfriends, for example, not really wanting to be in that relationship anymore, but also not knowing how to end it, not knowing how to express this is how I'm feeling or this is what I need. I really, really struggled with being clear within myself, okay, this is what I want, this is what I need, I'm going to choose this, and therefore I'm going to decide. And so as a result, I lived a very passive life where I basically didn't make any decisions until decisions were made for me or there just absolutely was no choice. And so it felt like I was floating down a river and wasn't doing anything to paddle or steer the boat or the raft that I was floating on. And instead, I was just like waiting until I bashed into rocks and changing direction. That's pretty much what happened. And so I stayed in job situations that on the one hand were good. Like I was making good money, I was managing restaurants, I got paid. There was things I liked about it. I liked my coworkers and my staff. I liked the responsibility, but at the same time there were parts of me that were exhausted, were burnt out, felt drained, felt like this was unsustainable. But instead of making a decision, I just stayed in this conflicted limbo state. And this was the same for another relationship that I found myself in a little like in my early adulthood, and feeling like this was not the relationship I wanted to be in, but I couldn't even really recognize that. It seemed like it just happened. Like I wasn't an active participant in my life. I wasn't an active participant in deciding to be in this relationship. And yet I had found myself there. And it was really, really hard for me to leave that relationship because it meant making a clear decision, making a clear choice. And for me, it felt really, really scary, really hard to make decisions, to make choices, because I was so afraid that it was going to be the wrong choice, or that I was going to hurt people, or that I was going to regret it. But what I learned is that you can't really live life passively, because even by not making choices, not making decisions, I was still making the decision to not make decisions. And therefore, all those decisions that were, quote, made for me, I was still the one making them. I was still the one in control of my life. I was still the one allowing myself to be in these situations that did not serve me. And all of this like inner conflict, I was still carrying it. And it was very detrimental, and it impacted me in so many ways. It affected my health in multiple ways. I was covered in head to toe eczema because I was so uncomfortable to be in my body. I was so stressed out. I had migraines regularly because I allowed myself to be in this life that was not in alignment for me. And I also felt like a victim of. I had no control over it, and yet I was the one that created it. The other problem that I faced when I had this realization of, oh my gosh, I'm the one in control. I'm the one that got myself here. Instead of being passive, I need to start making active choices in my life. It is up to me because I cannot go on this way. It is not sustainable. And really, I guess if I go really into it, this came down to a specific moment in time where it felt like the first time I really, really made a decision and a choice. And that was, I was laying in bed next to my now ex-boyfriend, but that partner at the time. And I had taken marijuana edibles after work, but accidentally way too much. And it was just like a miscommunication. I didn't know. And I had like consumed too much marijuana edibles. And where I live in Massachusetts, this is legal. Like marijuana is legal. So I don't tell this story that often. I like kind of do, but not in too much detail. So I'm laying there, I'm high out of my mind. I'm having all these crazy epiphanies about my life. And then I also have a terrifying experience of feeling like this is the end of my life. I go into full-on panic attack mode. I'm very young and I don't actually know anything about marijuana, and I'm thinking like drugs are bad. I'm just going to die. Of course I can overdose on this. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. And I really thought I was dying and that this was the end of my life. And in that moment, I remember distinctly laying there and thinking, like, okay, well, I guess this is just what's going to happen. And I noticed how passivity was my default. And passivity felt like the easiest choice because that's the life I had been living up until that point, was very much a life of passivity. But then I distinctly remember thinking, well, you know what? If I'm going to die, then I do not want to die here. And it felt like, honestly, the first time in my life, I made a choice. I made a decision. Instead of just passively surrendering and letting like death come for me, I got up and I left that room and I called my mother for help. And I made an active decision about my life. I was not planning on telling that story, but that is the example of me making decisions for the first time, even though it went against the grain of everything I had done previously. But then the other hard thing about this was I had been so passive for so long and passively making decisions and allowed myself to end up in some harmful, challenging, misaligned situations that I didn't have any self-trust. I couldn't trust myself because deep down I was like, how could I let myself end up in these situations? How could I let my life end up the way that it was? So not only am I now trying to make decisions, now I also have this fear of I can't trust myself to make the aligned decisions. And so a huge part of my practice, and really the secret to one of my secrets to success, is practicing learning to be somebody who does make decisions, and as a result, building up, rebuilding my sense of self-trust in the process. Because that is how you build self-trust, is by actively making decisions, actively making choices, and seeing what the outcome is and learning from those outcomes. And even if you mess up, even if you make mistakes, you can't build self-trust if you're not taking the action of making decisions and giving yourself the opportunity to trust yourself. You have to make choices and have some of those choices be right in order to know and believe that you can trust yourself. And also following through on what I say I'm going to do. That's a huge sense of self-trust. As opposed to being passive and letting myself not make decisions, being the one making decisions and sticking with those choices, sticking with those decisions, that is how I built up self-trust over time. And that was the foundation for being the one in control of my life instead of being a victim to circumstances and a victim in my life. And this is truly owning your power, owning your control, is making decisive action instead of staying in indecision. And this is true for huge, big, life-altering decisions, but it's also the same for small choices, small decisions, things that don't even matter, but we just don't make the choice right away. We keep it on the back burner. We don't answer those questions. And actually, staying in indecision around multiple things and just keeping it on the back burner and staying on the fence, it's exhausting. It's draining. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort, and it keeps you in the same place. It keeps you where you currently are instead of moving in the direction that you want to go. So that is the first secret to my success that I rarely share, and that is taking decisive action, making decisions over my life, and also learning to trust myself in those decisions and make those decisions faster and faster instead of letting them sit on the back burner and in indecision land. The second secret to my success that I rarely share is all about, it's honestly a continuation of the first step, and it's about taking action, taking the action that you can take. So I have a story for you. After I left that relationship, after I had that terrifying, like, near-death experience moment and started taking action, started making decisions for my life slowly but surely, and started building up self-trust. This was before I became the biz hippie. I started my own personal growth journey and started my own healing and self-discovery. Who am I? What's important to me? What kind of life do I want to live? And I went to a huge personal growth conference in Los Angeles called Dream Builder Live, run by a woman named Mary Morrissey. And I was invited actually by my mother. Like, my mother was going, she invited me to come along, and I said, yeah, why not? That sounds good. Didn't really know what to expect. And it's a like weekend long conference where you're in this big room, there's speaking on stage, there's activities, and Mary Morrissey has been in the personal growth game for a really long time. But this was one of my first experiences of deeper diving into personal growth. I had a lot of personal growth growing up because my mom was on her personal growth journey, and I believe I talked about this in the first episode of 3 Secrets to My Success that I rarely share. I talked about Bill Harris, but now is Mary Morrissey. And something that Mary Morrissey talked about at Dream Builder Live is this concept of what action can you take from where you are right now. And this is building on what I had originally learned from being passive and being in indecision, and instead making decisions, making choices, and now building upon that to see, okay, what actions can I take from where I currently am right now in alignment with the life I want to live. Because the problem that we face is often if we have a dream, we have a vision, we have a life we want to live, it feels far off in the distance. It feels like there's a million steps between where we currently are and where we want to go, and therefore it can feel really hard, impossible, and there's a lot of uncertainty around our ability to be able to reach it. And all of this clouds our ability to then move forward to actually create that life. It's kind of like you're hiking up a mountain and you're so focused on the peak and how far away the peak is, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even see it, it's up there in the fog, how could I ever get there? I don't know how I'm going to make it. But what this talks about, what Mary Morrissey talks about, is from where you are right now, what action can you take that just moves you forward in that direction? You don't need to know every single step between where you are and the top of that peak and where you want to go, because you're just not going to be able to see all of it. You have to step forward into it in order to see the next step. And then as you take steps forward, the next steps reveal themselves. It's kind of like you're walking on a fogged path. You need to step forward in order to see further ahead. And so even though we don't know exactly how it's all going to work out, even if we don't know the challenges we may have to face, even if it may feel impossible, we can only take the steps that are right in front of us. And that is how we eventually get there. Because if we look at climbing the mountain, the only way to climb the mountain is one step at a time. And so if you just focus on the very next step in front of you that you can take, and you take that step and you keep going, eventually you will make it to the top of that mountain. But we can't let the unknown of all those future steps, or how it's going to work out, or if we can do it, we can't let that stop us from taking the current steps that are right in front of us. Otherwise, we won't climb the mountain at all, and we won't arrive at the destination. So I want to share a story that Mary Morrissey shared at Dream Builder Live that really illustrates this idea and is really powerful. So one of Mary Morrissey's sons, his vision, his goal was to build a dream house. And he's beginning the implementation of building this dream house, and he has a conversation with somebody about creating blueprints to map out, okay, here's what the dream house is going to be, because that's the first step to building a house, is you have to get blueprints. And so he talks with the architect, and they find out, okay, it's going to cost, I have no idea what the numbers actually were, but let's just say like $1,000. It was some high amount of money to get the blueprints drawn up. And immediately he's like, $1,000 for these blueprints? Like, that's pretty crazy. I don't really have that money. It doesn't feel worth it really to like spend this money. And so he calls up his mom, Mary Morrissey, and Mary Morrissey is like, of course, spend the $1,000 and get the blueprints, even though that's like all the money you have right now, because you cannot build a house without blueprints. You just can't do it. And so you have to take the first step, even if it's a really scary and intimidating step, of actually investing in the blueprints. Otherwise, you will not have the house at all. And I think this is really big, especially when it comes to money, right? Like, money can be the thing that holds us back from taking the immediate action that is right in front of us. Because the truth is that, especially when we're walking towards our vision, we're going to be challenged. We're going to be stretched. We're expanding our comfort zone. We're doing something different than we've ever done before. And therefore, it's scary and it's intimidating and it requires more of you. And there's a lot of reasons to say no. There's a lot of reasons to say I can't do it. There's a lot of reasons to say no, I can't afford these blueprints. I don't have the money to shell out on this. It's not worthwhile, even though I really do want the dream house. But the problem with that is then you'll never have the thing. You'll never get there because you're not able to even take the first step that moves you in that direction. And so what also happens as a result is we end up having to stretch ourselves and give everything to the immediate step in front of us. And our brain wants to tell us, okay, well, going back to the house example, for example, if I spend this money on these blueprints, then I won't have any more money. And then I won't be able to take the next steps of building the house, etc., etc. And so our brain likes to logically tell us that it's wrong or bad or scary to make big investments and big leaps of faith on ourselves, because if anything, it feels like it actually conflicts with the big vision. It feels like if I make this first step, then of course I won't be able to get there. If I make this big investment in myself, then of course I won't be able to reach the dream, because therefore I won't have the money because I took this first step. But you're always moving forward, and you have to take that first step in order to make progress. And you also have to trust that the rest is going to unfold, that as you stretch yourself, as you take that next step, you're going to become a new person. New opportunities are going to present themselves, and that when you move forward bravely in the direction you want to go, the universe starts backing you. So miracles start to unfold and momentum occurs that actually continues to propel you in the direction you want to go. So all of this to say, the second secret to my success that I learned, so if the first step was learning to make decisions and learning to make choices, the second is recognizing what action can I take from where I currently am, and how can I give myself fully to those actions, even when it feels scary, even when it feels uncertain, recognizing that it's all required and all goes towards building the life that I want to live. And I have experienced this so many times in my own business. Like, for example, there was a time in the spring of 2024 where I had a conversation with a podcast booking agency, and I was not planning on investing and I didn't have like a bunch of money sitting around and available. And I get on this conversation with this woman, and she's like, okay, here's what it costs to work with us. It's $16,000. And I was like, holy crap, I am not ready to make this investment. But at the same time, my goal is to grow my business. And I know that this is the step in front of me that's going to help me get there. So I'm going to stretch myself and find a way to say yes to this, because this is the step that the universe has presented me with. I feel the alignment. I know that this is the decision that can move me forward. And even though it feels scary, even though it feels intimidating, even though it feels like I do not have this money, how can I make this happen, and how can I say yes to this? And I did. And I'm happy to say that that investment absolutely paid for itself, right? But that was just the beginning, because shortly after that, within 30 days of that, I found out that a business coach that I had been following for years was opening enrollment for her mastermind. And for the first time, I could actually get in the room. I could qualify. And so I applied to be in the room. I wasn't planning on signing up for this. I didn't even realize the timing of it. I didn't realize that I could qualify, but it was in the back of my mind for 3 years that I was going to do that program when I could, when I had hit the qualifications required in order to be in that room. And that was a $10,000 program. And again, I wasn't even planning on spending the original $16,000, let alone an additional $10,000. But as opposed to thinking like, I don't have the money to invest in this because I just made this big $16,000 investment, instead, I had the thought, of course I need to invest in this because I just made a $16,000 investment to be on podcasts. And so if I don't know how to effectively sell and have consultations with people and close the clients that are going to come my way through the podcasting efforts I already invested in, then all of that $16,000 would then be a waste. So the logical brain could have told me, no, I can't afford this. No, I can't do this to both of those investments. But the part of me that is moving forward towards my vision, towards my dream, knows that those are the next steps to take, and they feel scary and intimidating, and it's up to me to stretch myself to make them. And that is what contributed to my 6-figure year last year, was ever since I started my business, taking this lesson of what action can you take from where you are right now and focusing wholeheartedly on that, taking that lesson so seriously with every single choice I have made in my business, with every single investment I have made in my business. And going back to what I said earlier with lesson 1 of not only making these decisions, but making them faster and faster. Because the faster I can take the steps, the faster I can climb the mountain. So I'm really, really grateful that even though I felt like I couldn't invest in these things, I basically said yes the moment that I could. I didn't think I had the money, but I found a way to make it happen. And it was risky, but I did it. And then I did the exact same for investing in my coaching program. It was the second that I qualified, I said yes to it, even though I believed I couldn't afford it. But had I had waited on those investments, then I would basically be waiting to climb the mountain and I wouldn't be making the forward progress. I had to take the steps that was right in front of me and do it quickly, do it as soon as possible. So instead of wasting energy, wasting time, wasting effort, being in the same place and waiting until I can take the step in front of me, instead taking the step in front of me and quickly continuing to climb up that mountain. Okay, so that is The second secret to my success that I rarely share is Mary Morrissey's lesson about taking the action that you can take from where you are right now, even if it feels scary, risky, or honestly feels like it conflicts with the end goal vision. Still learning to stretch yourself and take that action anyway and do it quickly. Make quick decisions. And then the third secret to my success that I rarely share is continuing to move forward no matter what. And this is really required when it comes to building your vision and creating your most abundant life. Because the truth is it can be scary and it can be intimidating, and you can make choices that feel like the wrong choice. You can take big leaps of faith. You can take risky action. And honestly, some of those might be mistakes. Some of those might be losses. Some of them might be failure. And I have talked about it before on the show, how I've failed so many times in my business. Over the almost 6 years in my business, there have been countless times that I set revenue goals, income goals, client goals for launches. Like, oh, I want to sign this many people on this launch. And I've never hit those goals. The first time I ever hit any goal that I set in my business was in 2025. Last year, I set a revenue goal and I achieved it. It took me 5 years to achieve one goal that I set for myself. And so I have failed over and over and over again. And honestly, it's been really hard. It's been really challenging. It's been really disheartening. It's been really frustrating. It's caused me to question myself, my identity. It's caused me to question my business and believe, is this actually possible? Will it work? Can I really be a coach and have that be my real job full time and truly support myself financially with this work I love? Can I travel the world and get paid? Can I work from anywhere? Right? There was so many questions, so many doubts, so many times that I actually did ponder giving up or quitting. I have thought about it. Sometimes I still think about it. But deep down within me, at my very, very core, there is a part of me that is so committed to forward momentum that it doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter how much I'm hurting or suffering, how much I have failed, or how much I feel like a failure. It doesn't matter how hopeless the end result seems. This part of me will keep me moving forward no matter what, because I truly, deeply believe that I would rather keep moving forward through hard things than turn around and go back the way that I came. And for me, this is just a deep, innate feeling and knowing. And I see this not just in like the actions I take in my life and growing my business, but I see it like when I go for a walk. When I go for a walk outside and I'm like hiking through the woods, for example, it's literally uncomfortable for me in my body to be like, okay, I'm going to stop and turn around and walk back the way we came. Like, it feels uncomfortable. I like my hikes to be in a loop so that I can feel like I'm still moving forward, so I don't have to turn around and go back the other way, because it genuinely feels uncomfortable for me to turn around and go the other way. I hear people talk about this with their dogs. Like, some people have dogs that are the same way, where their dogs hate turning around, and so when they walk their dogs, they have to like go in a loop, even if it's like just walking in one direction, crossing the street, and then going back the other way. That feeling of forward momentum, it's inherent in some of us, apparently me and dogs, and probably some other people in the world. But I know for a fact that this is what has contributed to the success that I have now. I know for a fact, because everything that I talked about so far, with step 1 of making decisions and step 2 of taking the action that you can take, it requires you to have a sense of forward momentum and being so committed to continuing to climb that mountain no matter what, even when it's treacherous, even when it's scary, even when you fail, even when you make mistakes, even when you shell out thousands and thousands of dollars and it feels like it was for nothing and you didn't get the results you expected. Trust me, I've been there, I've done it, right? But how can you see that every single action that you take, every single decision that you make is contributing to the climb of that mountain? Even if it feels like it's not, even if it feels like it's a waste of money, it all contributes to the climb because the steps you're taking are still moving you in the direction that you want to go. For example, when I invested in my first business coach, I shelled out a bunch of money I didn't have at the time, and it didn't pay for itself. I didn't sign a single client like I expected to. I could have written that whole thing off as a failure and been like, that was a huge waste of money, and therefore never invest in a coach ever again and be like, nope, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It's not going to pay off. It's a waste of money. But I didn't. Because even though that investment didn't pay for itself, I learned a lot in that investment. I grew a lot in that investment. I had to become a new person in order to even make that commitment and that investment to myself and to my business in the first place. By making that investment, I said, I am a legit business owner. I'm taking my business seriously. I'm committed to my vision, and I'm willing to invest time, energy, and money into it. And so even though I didn't make that money and I could have counted that as a failure, I actually count that as growth. I count that as progress because I learned so much. I gained so much from making that decision and taking that step that was right in front of me and doing what I could from where I was with what I had. That propelled me forward to be able to take these bigger steps, take this bigger action. That $16,000 investment and that $10,000 investment that I made in 30 days, I could not have done that had I not learned the skills of investing in myself and getting the values worth out of my investments from the first coach that I hired. And therefore, that's how I know that that first coach was worth it, because it helped me become the person who could take these bigger actions and bigger steps in the future. So my third secret to my success is forward steps, forward action, and keep going no matter what. Because the only way that you can truly fail, whether it's growing your abundant business, whether it's stepping into your vision, whether it's creating your next level of abundance, whatever it is, the only way that you cannot get there is when you stop walking, right? It's just like climbing that mountain. You need to keep taking the steps forward. And even if it feels like you're taking detours and you're taking the scenic route and you're winding around corners and I can't see the peak anymore, am I even moving towards it? If you keep going, if you keep taking the steps, then you will arrive at the top of that mountain. And that's what true success is. Okay, so these are the 3 secrets to my success that I rarely share. Making decisions, making them quickly, taking the action that you can take from where you are with what you have, even if it feels like you're sacrificing everything for that one step, and continuing to move forward and keep going no matter what. And as you practice this and build up self-trust, the faster and faster you can do this, the faster you build momentum, the faster you reach that peak. So this is a skill set. It can be scary. It can be uncomfortable, especially when it feels like you're taking big leaps and risking a lot with your decisions, with your actions. But the more you do it, the faster you can make decisions, the faster you can take these steps, and that's what gets you up that mountain quick. Okay? Now, again, if you haven't already, take a minute to sign up for the Abundant Entrepreneur Masterclass, which I'm hosting Monday, March 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This free 90-minute masterclass is the perfect way to keep this momentum going, because I'm going to be giving you some very clear next steps that you can take to become the abundant entrepreneur that you are meant to be and support yourself financially doing the work that you love. And I know it's possible for you because over 6 years of failure, I have done it for myself. That is all for this week. Have a great rest of your Money Monday, and I'll see you next week.